Welcome back to Hannity. So last night, while Iranian forces held 10 U.S. Navy sailors, President Obama made no reference to that outrage during the State of the Union address. Instead, the president praised the Iranian nuclear deal. Here with reaction from the Fox Business Network, our friend Dobbs, Pollster Frank Luntz, and from the Washington Times, Charles Hurt. Good to see you all. Frank, you were focus grouping last night. I think it's one of the worst deals I've ever seen in my life. I went over that earlier with John Kirby. What was the reaction of your focus group?
Well, I have to give you credit first. You've been very tough on your guests from time to time, asking them very challenging questions. Sean, I listened to your interview, and you prosecuted this case. You demonstrated Iran's culpability better than anyone that I've seen, and you deserve tremendous credit because you got the State Department finally to admit the truth. It's one of the reasons I've encouraged people to go see 13 Hours. They have to see that movie about Benghazi because that tells the truth about what happened. You delivered that in about a 5-minute interview better than I've seen anyone do.
I appreciate that. I wish it wasn't going to happen, though. I wish it had more impact, Frank.
But you know what? You've got, 2-3 million people who watch you every night. You've got 4 million people, 5 million who listen to you every day. You've got more impact than you realize. And that interview should be played as often as possible because it teaches people how to get the truth out of this administration. Our audience laughed when Barack Obama talked about Iran giving up its nuclear weapons.
They laughed last night?
They laughed. Even some Democrats laughed because they simply don't believe this government. And as that speech is being given, of course, these Americans being taken, I'll use the word hostage, it was against their will, no one holds the administration accountable, and nobody demands the truth. And those two attributes, accountability and the truth, are exactly what the public is looking for. They don't believe they get it from Iran. They don't believe they'll get it from this agreement. And thank you. You just did a tremendous service for the country.
Thank you, Frank. Lou, you know the economy better than anybody I know. You and Neil Cavuto are two people I really count on when I want to know information about the economy. I just rolled off in my rebuttal to the State of the Union, labor participation rate, poverty rate, unemployment rate, all of these numbers, all these millions more Americans suffering under this president, foreclosures, etc. How bad is it in your view?
It's bad, and you're exactly right. In your response to the State of the Union, you're talking about reality. But whether it's Iran, as you prosecuted the case, as Frank said so ably, with John Kirby, the former admiral at the State Department, as their spokesman, I mean, there's no answer beyond it's a mess. There are people in pain. And we can talk about a 5% unemployment rate. The reality is that when you take into account the discouraged workers that you mentioned, the people who have detached themselves from the workforce, given up, I mean, we're talking about a double-digit unemployment rate. We're talking about wages that haven't grown in this country for the middle class in the last 30 years. We have to get to the reality, and we have a president who is creating a new reality. He calls it a fundamental transformation. But whether it's foreign policy, whether it's domestic policy, whether it's economic policy, whether it's Iran,
let me ask you this:
more than fantasy.
If I'm a CEO, Lou, or CFO of a company, and I decided to do math the way they do in Washington, where you don't count the chronically unemployed or long-term unemployed, why do I think I would be handcuffed, fingerprinted, perp-walked, and put in jail for a long time? How did they get away with these phony numbers?
Because it has become, if you will, the code, the language, and the value structure of both political parties over the course of time. We have two political parties right now that are not vying in the open. We are watching a presidential campaign, in my judgment, Sean, that is the most open, the most revelatory, the most engaging in my career. I don't know what Frank would say to this, but I will tell you, the American people are watching what is happening up close. They are watching combativeness over issues that matter, whether it's illegal immigration, whether it's free trade, whether it is Russia, whether it is minority unemployment and the quality of life. For all Americans. I mean, we are watching candidates who can't seem to, who before couldn't seem to speak the truth, are now being engaged, and I think principally, and I'll say it out loud here, principally because Donald Trump brought it, and he means to have a direct, open dialogue. And the nation, if for nothing else, owes that.
And Charles, you've been a supporter of Mr. Trump, and you cannot deny the numbers. I mean, now it's just a matter of do people show up for him?
Yeah, you know, watching the State of the Union address last night, and sort of I found my head exploding after nearly every line, especially when he turned on Republicans and began lecturing them about how they need to put away the voices of their base and start legislating from a more noble high ground. It was absolutely mind-blowing, and this is why so many people are flocking, I think, to Donald Trump. But going back to what you said, Sean, not only would you be frog-marched into prison if you ran a company with accounting practices the way these people do, if you ran a retirement fund for people the way these people run Social Security, you would be shut down, put in jail for running a Ponzi scheme. You'd be roommates with Bernie Madoff right now.
All right, Lou, I was watching you after the last debate. I ran into you in the hall. I said you did a great job both pre and post debate. We'll be watching tomorrow night. You going to be there?
Going to be there. We'll be kicking it off at 5 o'clock for the early debate, 6 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a hoot, and 9 o'clock for the prime time debate, and we'll be in between. We'll sort of be kind of fielding and finding our way.
Thanks for taking my audience.
The time between.
We really appreciate you robbing the audience for the night. Thanks a lot.
Well, we appreciate the borrowing, and it's very generous of you.
No, Hurley, you've earned every bit of it. We'll be watching tomorrow night. Thanks, Lou.